They told me that I wasn't family to them, while I was working 65 hours a week just to feed them. So, my name's Ethan. I'm 39 years old, I live in Minneapolis, and I've been working as an accountant at a logistics company for almost 12 years now. It's the kind of job where everything runs on spreadsheets, coffee, and the quiet desperation of middle-aged men in ill-fitting shirts. I used to like it. Now it just pays the bills. I met Megan 5 years ago. She was 32 at the time, divorced, and raising her son Tyler on her own. We met through mutual friends at a bonfire, of all things, and by the end of the night, we were sitting on the same bench, laughing about something stupid. She had this tired but genuine energy, like someone who'd been through a lot and didn't have time for fake smiles. I respected that. She was upfront about her situation, single mom, no child support, working 2 jobs, and not looking for a man to save her. I wasn't trying to save anyone. I just liked her. And when you like someone, you take the whole package. That included Tyler. He was 10 when I met him. Shy, moody, obsessed with dinosaurs and Fortnite. He barely looked at me the first few weeks. I think he thought I was just another guy who'd come and go. Megan never said it directly, but I could feel it. He'd seen men drift in and out of his life before. So I didn't push. I showed up when I said I would. Took an interest in the stuff he cared about. When he asked me, dead serious, if I thought a T-Rex could survive in Minnesota's winter, I said, only if he had a good coat. He cracked a smile. That was the first time I felt like maybe I had a shot at this. We got married 2 years later. Just a small courthouse thing. No wedding party, no big dinner. Megan wore a navy dress, and I wore a tie I borrowed from my boss. Tyler was our witness. He was 13 by then. Quiet, smart, still kind of awkward. I wasn't his dad, and I didn't pretend to be. But he'd started calling me Ethan with a kind of respect in his voice I hadn't heard before. Like I'd earned a place, if not the title. Then came the orthodontist. Tyler had this overbite that made him self-conscious. He'd started covering his mouth when he laughed and refusing to smile in photos. Megan brought it up during dinner one night, like she was trying to act casual. The dentist says he needs braces, she said, stirring spaghetti like it was no big deal. Badly. How much? I asked, already bracing myself. $2,800 down, she said, not looking at me. And $160 a month after that. For at least a year and a half. Our insurance didn't cover any of it. Of course it didn't. Megan was already working 6 days a week at the pharmacy and picking up Instacart orders on the side. I was the one with the stable income, the decent credit, the quiet evenings. So I told her not to worry about it, that I'd take care of it. The next week, I picked up a night shift at a Cub Foods about 20 minutes from our house. 4 nights a week, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., unloading trucks in the freezing back dock and pushing pallets into the aisles. Then I drive home, sleep for 3 hours, shower, and go to my real job in a button-up shirt that still smelled faintly like cardboard and bleach. Nobody at work knows. They think I'm just tired from parenting stuff. And Megan doesn't ask questions because she already knows the answer. I tell myself it's temporary, that once the braces are paid off, I'll go back to my life. But lately, I can't help wondering if this is just what my life is now. Quiet sacrifices, no recognition, and a kid who still calls me Ethan instead of Dad. And I keep doing it. Because I said I would. I was working 65 hours a week, running on fumes, sleeping maybe 4 hours a night if I was lucky, and most nights I wasn't. I'd leave the house before sunrise, dragging my aching body from one job to the next, come home past midnight, peel off my sweat-soaked shirt, and lie awake staring at the ceiling while my back throbbed and my mind buzzed with numbers and invoices and the next bill coming due. I wasn't living. I was grinding, day in and day out, just trying to hold everything together so Megan and Tyler wouldn't have to feel the cracks forming beneath us. And I miss things. A lot of things. I miss Tyler's soccer games, the ones I used to practice for with him in the yard when we still talked. I miss Sunday dinners where Megan would make lasagna and play old jazz records while Tyler groaned and rolled his eyes. I missed birthdays, school meetings, casual evenings on the couch. I missed being part of my own family because I was too busy keeping that family financially alive. But there was no thanks. No appreciation. Just this growing coldness, like my efforts were invisible or worse, annoying. Megan barely looked me in the eye anymore. When she did, it was with this tight-lipped expression like she was holding back a list of things she didn't want to say. Tyler had shifted too, and not in the way you'd expect from a 15-year-old just dealing with hormones. He stopped greeting me when I walked in the door. He stopped replying when I asked how school was. It was just sarcasm, eye rolls, and long stretches of silence where I felt like I was intruding in my own home. It wasn't just the emotional distance, it was the entitlement that stung. I bought him new soccer boots after his old ones started falling apart. Nike Tiempos, not cheap knockoffs. I didn't even wait for his mom to ask. I just ordered them and had them shipped to the house. No thank you. No smile. He opened the box, looked at them like he was inspecting a rental car, then tossed them aside like they were nothing. Same with the gaming laptop. I found a decent mid-range model on sale, something he could use for both school and Steam games. He opened it up, said, "Finally," and walked away without another word. It felt like I had just handed him a napkin. I tried to brush it off. I told myself it was just a phase, that teenagers are all like this. But it wasn't just Tyler. Megan had grown distant too. She stopped waiting up for me at night. We used to text during the day, little things, memes, inside jokes, but that faded. Now most of our conversations were logistical, groceries, bills, whether Tyler needed a ride somewhere. I could count on one hand the number of times she'd asked how I was doing in the past year. I don't think she even noticed when I started drinking coffee at night, just to keep myself awake on the drive home from Cub Foods. Or when I started falling asleep in the bathroom at work because it was the only quiet place I had. I remember one night in particular. It was raining hard, and I'd just finished a shift hauling crates in soaked jeans. My hands were numb, and I had a pounding headache from skipping lunch. I walked into the house and saw them both on the couch, laughing at something on the TV. I stood there, dripping wet, expecting at least a glance. Nothing. Megan didn't even pause what she was doing. Tyler glanced at me, then went right back to whatever game he was playing on his phone. I stood there for a minute, waiting for someone to acknowledge me, and then just turned and walked into the kitchen. The dinner plates were still on the counter, cold and congealed. No one had thought to save me a plate. I ate a piece of bread, drank a glass of water, and went to bed with my stomach still growling. I lay there in the dark, listening to the rain and wondering how I got here. How I'd gone from someone who felt needed to someone who felt invisible. And the thing that hurt the most was that I couldn't even be angry. I'd volunteered for this. I'd walked into it with my eyes open, thinking that love and commitment would be enough to carry me through. But love can't survive in silence. Not when everything you do goes unnoticed. Not when you give, and all you get in return is the cold shoulder from the very people you're breaking your body to support. The morning started like most others. I was half asleep behind the wheel, trying to suppress the burning in my eyes from another night of broken sleep and sore muscles. Tyler sat beside me, scrolling through his phone with his hood up, backpack on his lap, earbuds in, but not playing anything. I knew because I could hear the faint hum of the engine and the rain on the windshield. No music, no sound. Just him shutting me out. We pulled into the school drop-off lane and I tried, once again, to be the adult who still gave a damn. "So," I said, forcing some kind of lightness into my voice, "how's algebra treating you this week?" He didn't even flinch, just stared out the window like I hadn't said anything. The silence sat between us, heavy and sharp, like the car itself was holding its breath. I tried again, quieter this time. "Is Mr. Clausen still going off on his tangents? You said last week he spent half the class talking about toaster ovens." Still nothing. Then, suddenly, he opened the door so fast it nearly hit the car next to us. He stepped out, then turned around before I could say another word. "You're just a loser that my mom chose because she didn't have a choice," he said, his voice low but clear, every word sliding into my chest like a blade. "You are not my dad, and you never will be." I sat frozen, hands still on the gear shift, the rain tapping against the glass like it was trying to cover up what just happened. I looked past him, toward the sidewalk where Megan was standing, arms crossed, waiting to walk him in. I expected a reaction from her, shock, anger, anything. Instead, she met my eyes with that same cold indifference she'd been perfecting for months, and said calmly, like it was the weather report, "He's just saying what we're all thinking." It took me a second to register it. Not because I didn't believe she could say something like that, but because somewhere deep down, I think I still hoped she wouldn't. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mouth went dry, and my hand slipped off the gear shift. Tyler slammed the door and walked off with her, both of them disappearing into the foggy morning like I had never been there to begin with. I didn't drive away right away. I just sat there, staring through the windshield at nothing, my mind buzzing and blank all at once. The school bell rang in the distance, and I watched a stream of students shuffle past, laughing, yelling, running for the door. For a moment, I thought about just driving straight until I ran out of gas. No destination, no plan, just forward motion. The rest of the day passed in a fog. I couldn't focus at work. I keyed in numbers wrong. I stared at a spreadsheet for over an hour before realizing I hadn't clicked a single cell. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tyler's face, saw Megan beside him, heard those words again like a loop stuck on repeat. "You are not my dad, and you never will be. He's just saying what we're all thinking." By the time I got home, it was dark. I dropped my keys on the counter, kicked off my shoes, and walked into the kitchen. Megan was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone, a glass of wine untouched beside her. She didn't even look up when she spoke. "You're lucky I ever married you," she said, like it was just another fact, Something you'd say about a weather forecast or the price of gas. No emotion. Just a flat, brutal statement designed to end whatever was left of me. I stood there for a long time, not moving, not speaking, feeling something in me crack quietly. I didn't argue. I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. I slept on the couch that night, though slept is probably too generous a word for what actually happened. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my back aching against the old cushions, every muscle in my body stiff from weeks of restless nights and stress I could no longer even name. The house was quiet at first, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the walls shifting in the cold. But then, sometime after midnight, I heard it. Laughter. Not just a giggle or a chuckle, but real, carefree laughter drifting down from the room upstairs. It was them, Megan and Tyler, laughing like they had just shared the best joke in the world. Like nothing had happened. Like I wasn't down there with their words still echoing in my skull. That I was a loser. That I was lucky Megan ever married me. That I was just a placeholder. An obligation. A necessary inconvenience. I lay there frozen, listening to that laughter bleed through the walls, and I felt something inside me shift. It wasn't rage exactly. It was colder than that. Quieter. I started doing the math in my head, not because I wanted to, but because it came automatically, like breathing. 3 years of marriage. $48,000. Give or take. That's what I had poured into this house, into their lives. Rent, utilities, insurance, orthodontics, school supplies, groceries, new plumbing, car maintenance, birthday gifts, holiday decorations, even those dumb backyard solar lights Megan insisted on and never touched again. The gaming laptop. The soccer gear. Weekend takeout orders. That stupid $80 cake she wanted for her mother's birthday that no one even finished. $48,000. That's what it cost to be tolerated. To be used. To be told I was nothing more than a convenient backup plan. That was the price of being the guy who showed up, who paid the bills, who didn't matter. I lay there for hours, staring at the dark ceiling, going over it again and again, until there was only one conclusion left to draw. They didn't love me. They didn't even like me. They liked what I brought. The stability. The effort. The ATM with legs. And the worst part was, they weren't even pretending to hide it anymore. So that night, on that goddamn couch, with their laughter still ringing in my ears, I decided something. They were going to see what happens when the ATM stops working. When the machine unplugs itself and walks away. When the man who bent over backwards to carry a family that never considered him family disappears without a sound. I didn't know when or how exactly, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done. The next morning, I got up early, even though I hadn't really slept. My body moved on autopilot while my mind stayed locked on one goal. I drove to a different branch of my bank across town, somewhere far enough that Megan would never casually drive by or mention it in passing. I opened a new checking account under just my name and had my paycheck rerouted there. It took less than 30 minutes to cut off their access to the money they had always assumed would just show up. After that, I went home and sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. I logged into every account that was in my name. Netflix, internet, water, gas, electricity, the pest control subscription Megan forgot she ordered, and the Hulu account that Tyler used more than anyone. I clicked into each one by one, and updated the payment information, either removing my card entirely or letting the bill lapse. It was surprisingly easy. Just a few clicks, and all the quiet, taken-for-granted services that kept their lives running began to vanish. Then I opened a fresh spreadsheet. No color formatting, no frills. Just columns labeled, date, payment description, amount paid. I started filling in rows. February 3rd, grocery run, $112.27. February 4th, cell phone bill, $129.19. February 6th, gas bill, $86.44. I didn't skip a single entry. I saved receipts. I screenshotted transactions. I wanted a record, cold and clean. Not for them, never again for them, but for me. I wanted to see, in black and white, the scope of what I'd given and what they had never seen. Every payment was a quiet reminder that while they laughed upstairs and treated me like a burden, I was the one keeping the lights on. I was the one making sure the Wi-Fi worked, the water ran, and the fridge was full. They could scoff. They could whisper. But none of them had ever once wondered what would happen if I just stopped. And now they were going to find out. It was only the first stage. A quiet retreat, nothing loud or confrontational. Just small, invisible shifts that they wouldn't even notice until the first bill bounced or the Wi-Fi cut out during Tyler's game. And when they did finally notice, when the question started, I wouldn't have to say a word. The spreadsheet would say it for me. 2 weeks passed before anything really happened. I kept my head down, showed up at work, went to the night shift like usual, and stuck to the plan. The bills stopped getting paid, the services quietly lapsed, and the spreadsheet grew longer every day. No one said a word. Not Megan, not Tyler. They probably assumed it was a glitch or a delay, like the machine had just coughed once but would keep chugging. Then one afternoon, I got a message from Megan. No greeting, no question, just a flat sentence. Internet is down. Tyler can't turn in his assignment. It was the first time she had reached out in any meaningful way in weeks. Not to ask how I was or if I was okay, but because something they needed had stopped working. I stared at the message for a moment, then locked my phone and went back to stacking boxes. 6 hours later, during my break, I texted back. I forgot. Very busy on the night shift. I didn't say sorry. I didn't offer to fix it. I just let it sit. That was when I felt the first flicker of panic. Not hers, mine. I logged into my bank account and saw that my credit card had been frozen. Not maxed out, frozen. A flag had been triggered from some automatic charge I'd forgotten to cancel. Then I saw a second notification from my utility provider, a disconnection warning. My personal electricity bill was overdue, and if I didn't pay by the following day, they'd shut off power to the place I had just started calling my own. My heart started pounding. I sat in the break room with my phone in one hand and my forehead in the other, doing the math in my head, realizing that while I was cutting them off, I hadn't secured my own footing nearly as well as I thought. I'd been so focused on peeling myself away from them, on reclaiming control, that I hadn't seen the trap I was walking into. I wasn't just unplugging them. I was slowly pulling the rug out from under myself too. And now, the floor was starting to crack. Still, I didn't respond again. I didn't offer to fix the internet or check in about Tyler's assignment. Let them feel the drop. Let them start to wonder where the safety net went. Let her panic, because for the first time in 3 years, she was the one realizing how fragile everything had been, how much of it had depended on the man she'd laughed about behind closed doors. She caught me in the kitchen one afternoon, holding her phone like it was evidence in a trial. The screen turned toward me. It was a screenshot of the internet bill, a red overdue banner across the top. $127 a month, she said, her voice sharp but uncertain. That's how much it is now. Are you seriously saying you can't cover that? I didn't answer right away. I just looked at the screen, then at her, then turned back to what I was doing, repacking my lunch for the night shift. It was the first time she'd said anything with actual numbers, like the reality of money was finally starting to sink in. Before, bills were something that got magically paid. She never logged into the accounts. She never asked what was due. Now she was standing there trying to make the costs sound like my problem again. Later that evening, as I was passing through the living room, she started talking without looking up from her phone. I'm working hard too, you know, she said, like it was an announcement. The mall's been crazy this month. I've been picking up hours. I didn't ask where or when. I didn't ask why Tyler suddenly had a new pair of shoes, but the Wi-Fi was still down. I knew better than to chase the math on Megan's money. It never added up. The nails were still done. The takeout bag still appeared on the counter. Tyler still had new games in his Steam library. The internet didn't get paid, but her Instagram story had 2 lattes from different cafes last week. So I just said, without looking up, maybe you should take an extra shift. She didn't respond. No sarcasm. No insult. No mockery about how I worked nights unloading boxes. Just silence. It hung in the room like a fog, thick and uncomfortable. For the first time since all this started, she didn't have something to say back. And in that silence, I knew she was starting to get it. Not all at once, not fully, but enough. The truth was creeping in. The life she had gotten so used to was cracking, and no amount of deflection could patch it up anymore. The next orthodontist payment was coming up, $160 like clockwork, same as every month for nearly 2 years. But this time, I didn't go online and pay it without a word. Instead, I waited until Tyler came into the kitchen looking for a snack, set $80 on the counter, and said, "Here, ask your mom for the rest." He stared at the cash like it was a trap. "What is this?" he asked, voice already edging toward attitude. "Half," I said. "I've covered every payment until now. You and your mom can handle the other 80. He scoffed and grabbed the money, walking out without saying anything. 10 minutes later, Megan stormed in from upstairs, holding the bills like she'd caught me stealing. "You gave him half? Seriously? That's not how this works." I didn't even bother standing up. "It is now." She started pacing, arms folded, doing that thing she does where she starts raising her voice just enough to sound serious, but not enough to call it yelling. "You can't just stop paying for things you started. He needs those braces. You're the one who said." I said I'd help. I cut in. Not carry everything forever. They both threw their tantrums in different ways. Tyler slammed a door upstairs. Megan muttered all afternoon about how unreliable I'd become, but I didn't move an inch. No explanations, no apologies. The money stayed split, and the world didn't end. That night, I drove across town after my shift, walked into a small leasing office above a florist shop, and signed a lease for a studio apartment. $730 a month. One window, creaky floorboards, a kitchen the size of a closet, but it was mine. I hadn't even packed a bag yet, but the moment I signed that paper, it was like something unclenched in my chest. For the first time in years, I had something that wasn't tied to them. Something they couldn't poison or dismiss or take for granted. It was small and quiet and plain, but it was freedom, and it had my name on it. A month had passed since I walked away from that house, and by then, all the services I used to pay for had caught up to them. The cable was shut off first, followed by the internet, which had limped along for a while before finally being cut completely. No more online games for Tyler. No more streaming shows Megan barely paid attention to while scrolling through her phone. The comfort they had grown so used to, the one I had paid for month after month without thanks, was gone, and the silence on their end cracked. Tyler was the first to reach out. He called me one evening just after I got home from work. I let it ring for a moment, then answered without saying anything. He didn't waste time with greetings. "Can you at least help with the bills?" he asked, like we were picking up a conversation we had just paused earlier in the day. His tone wasn't angry. It was worn out, like he'd been arguing with Megan or staring at a blank laptop screen, trying to figure out how to turn in homework without Wi-Fi. I didn't respond. Not a word. I just held the phone to my ear, listening to the shallow breath on the other end. After a few seconds of silence, he hung up. No goodbye, no thanks. Just a click and nothing. Then it was Megan's turn. First came the short, sweet lines. "Home isn't home without you. I miss you. We all do." They landed in my inbox one after another like she was testing the water, waiting for a response that didn't come. A day later, the messages grew longer. Paragraphs filled with supposed realizations. "I've been thinking about everything," she wrote. "I know I didn't show it, but you were the glue in this family. I realize now how much you did for us. I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." She wrote like someone trying to rewind a movie halfway through and pretend nothing had happened. No mention of the couch. No mention of the words she'd thrown at me like knives. No acknowledgement of the years of silence and mockery and coldness. I read the messages once. Then I put my phone down on the table and let the screen fade to black. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. For the first time in 3 years, the ones who treated me like a ghost were starting to feel what that actually meant. It wasn't until a few weeks later that the truth really came crashing down. Megan's sister, Terry, came to my new place one evening, uninvited but not entirely unexpected. She didn't waste time with pleasantries or small talk. As soon as she stepped inside, she pulled out a stack of bank statements and laid them on the table between us. I glanced at them, confused, but she didn't waste any time explaining. "I thought you should see these," she said flatly. "Megan's been sending money. A lot of it." I flipped through the statements, but it took a moment for the numbers to make sense. There were multiple transfers, consistently $900 each month, going to someone named Marcus. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake, but the more I looked, the more it became clear. Megan had been transferring money to this Marcus every month without fail for who knows how long. It was just a name on a piece of paper to me, but it wasn't just the money that got to me. It was the context. Terry, watching my face as the reality hit, didn't flinch. She was paying for his car, she said, her voice cold, and his vacations. She even paid for his crypt. I looked up at her, not sure what to say. Was this real? Was she really telling me that Megan, the woman who had stood beside me when things were good and things were bad, had been secretly giving nearly $1,000 a month to a man she used to date? Someone she was apparently still involved with, in more ways than one? I sat there, staring at the papers, my thoughts swirling. While I had been working night shifts, exhausting myself just to keep everything running, Megan had been using the money to support him. Someone who wasn't even in our family, who wasn't even contributing. Marcus. The name burned through my mind. All those hours I had spent in the dark, lifting boxes, straining my body to pay for things I thought were for us. It had all been a lie. She had been paying for a life with him, while I was just a background player in the one she pretended we were living together. The shock hit me hard, and it wasn't just the betrayal. It was the realization that everything I thought I knew about our relationship had been a facade. I had been humping away at a night job, keeping everything together, while she had been off living some secret life with Marcus. She'd lied about everything. Every time she asked me to pick up another shift, every time she told me she couldn't afford something, she was hiding it. She was hiding him. We met at a small cafe near the mall where she worked. I chose the place on purpose, public enough to keep things civil, quiet enough that I could say what I needed without raising my voice. She arrived 5 minutes late, looking put together like she always did when she wanted to seem in control. I didn't stand up. I didn't greet her. I just waited until she sat down, then reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. I slid it across the table and watched her expression change as she opened it. Inside was a neatly printed spreadsheet, the same one I had been keeping since the beginning. Every payment I'd made over the last 3 years, every grocery run, every utility, every orthodontist bill. But that wasn't all. On top of the spreadsheet were Terry's copies of Megan's bank statements, the ones showing the $900 transfers to Marcus, month after month. I didn't say a word as she scanned the pages, her mouth tightening, her fingers frozen on the paper. "I'm filing for divorce," I said quietly, before she could speak. "And I'm done paying your credit cards. I'll continue covering half the mortgage until we figure out the property, but that's it." She opened her mouth, probably to defend herself or shift the blame or act surprised, but I didn't give her the chance. "As for Tyler," I continued, "he can get support if he needs it, but not through you. Not one more cent will go through your hands." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person sitting across from her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe the quiet, dependable guy she thought would always clean up the mess had finally disappeared for good. I didn't care. I stood up, left a $5 bill for the coffee I didn't touch, and walked out. She didn't follow, and I didn't look back. A few days after that meeting at the cafe, I got a message from Tyler. It came late, just after midnight, and for a while I just stared at the notification on my phone without opening it. When I finally did, the message was short but honest in a way I hadn't expected. He wrote, "I'm sorry. I was just repeating what my mom always said about you when you weren't home." I read it twice. Then again. It didn't undo everything, but it cracked something open. It was the first time he had acknowledged what had really been going on in that house. The way words were twisted behind closed doors. The way I was quietly undermined by someone who smiled to my face while poisoning the well when I was gone. He followed up a minute later. "I want to change things. I don't want it to stay like this." I didn't respond right away. I let the words sit for a bit before I carefully typed out my reply. I told him I was open to it, but on some conditions. That if we were going to rebuild anything, it had to start with respect. That I wasn't obligated to help him, but I was willing to choose to. If he understood that support wasn't something to be demanded or expected, but something that came from trust. I told him that his grades mattered, that showing up mattered, that how he treated people mattered. He replied almost instantly, "I get it. I mean it. I'm going to try." It wasn't dramatic. No promises of perfection or long emotional speeches. Just a small shift, a single thread being rewoven. I didn't know where it would go, but for the first time in a long time, the silence wasn't heavy. It felt like maybe, just maybe, we had cleared enough of the wreckage to start over. 2 months have passed since I walked out of that house and into my own life. I live alone now in a quiet studio with creaky floorboards and a tiny kitchen that smells like coffee every morning. It's not much, but it's mine. There's no yelling behind doors, no tension lingering in the hallway, no unpaid bills waiting for me on the counter. Just peace. I go to the gym after work. I cook my own meals, even if it's just pasta or grilled chicken and frozen vegetables. I sleep a full 8 hours most nights, something I didn't even realize I had forgotten how to do. My phone doesn't buzz with passive-aggressive texts. My money doesn't disappear into someone else's pocket. My name doesn't get used as a placeholder for obligation. And every morning, when I wake up, my chest is clear. No anxiety, no dread, just stillness. For the first time in years, I can breathe without waiting for something to go wrong. I thought I would be angry forever. I thought the betrayal would stay sharp, but it didn't. The anger burned out, and what's left now is something better. I'm not bitter. I'm not resentful. I'm just free. And this time, it's for good. So tell me, Reddit, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed longer? Left sooner? Cut them off, or tried to fix it? I'm curious to hear what you think. Would you have handled it differently?